them all. So it's 2 p.m. Hello, I'm Mira Grant. Welcome to the Barnes & Noble Children's section. Today we'll be reading from How the Grinch Stole Christmas. More seriously, I am here for the Parasite tour, and we discovered at the first stop on this particular tour that this is a terrible book for me to read aloud from. Because while I can spell all of the words in the book, I can spell them really well. Like, I am now the queen of crosswords that involve questions about parasitic infection. I can't pronounce many of those words reliably or on the fly, which turns any really accessible part of the book into... Nikki, what do you think this word is? Worms. So instead what we've been doing is discussion and Q&A. I will answer pretty much any question with 2 reservations. If I feel that a good and proper answer would be overly spoilery, I will replace keywords with bunnies. You could wind up with an entire warren. Remember, not everyone has had the opportunity to read anything and read everything. And since we are sitting here in the children's section, and I must thus attempt to swear a little less than I normally do, any place where I would normally be inspired to start swearing at you, say you ask about the anti-vaccinationist movement, I will be using the names of Pokemon instead. So if you're tired of hearing about Pokemon, try not to make me angry. No, we do have a mic. Right. Which is because then I can offend more children. That's good. That's really, really great. Okay.
Welcome,
so
Mira Grant.
Yay! Depending on the density of our questions, all of that fun stuff, I will talk for however long we go. I'll go till at least 2:30, and then I'll sign books. If we could, if possible, purchase the books before they are signed, Barnes & Noble would really, really prefer that. And we will try and form the line off to my right. If someone has to get home for an important appointment, you're seeing the dentist at 4, anything like that, we did have that come up. Please just let folks know they may let you come to the front of the line. They may also elbow you in your solar plexus and tell you to go to the back. That's not my problem. So what have we got? Yes, Laura.
How much were you creeped out researching for this?
I got a tapeworm researching for this. His name was Timmy.
On purpose?
On purpose. I went to the Minnesota Museum of Parasitology, and they gave me a tapeworm in pill form, which I ingested and then lived with for approximately 16 months while documenting the effects of tapeworm infection on the human body. Timmy is no longer with us, sadly, due to 2 courses of antiparasitics, because the first one, surprise, didn't work. But I do feel that Timmy is in some ways still with me. He haunts my digestive system, sapping nutrients from my soul instead of from my body, and I miss him. I really enjoyed being able to use the royal we. We would like to get on the plane now. We would like another cookie. We don't think you want to know what's going on biologically. So that was great fun. I'm very rarely creeped out by what I'm researching, because learning about a thing, no matter how upsetting it might be, is part of how I cope with the fact that we live in a world that is full of terrifying, upsetting, and infuriating things. So if I start getting creeped out about something, that's really when I start reading everything I can get my hands on and learn as much about it as possible, except for clowns. Clowns will never not be creepy. Clowns are not okay. I only say funny things if you ask questions. Otherwise, it's the knock-knock jokes for you. Yes?
So if I remember right, with your feed series, you had fan mail from the CDC?
I do get fan mail from the CDC.
Has anyone in a professional capacity emailed or written you about Parasite?
Not yet. Well, though the Minnesota Museum of Parasitology does kind of wish I'd stop mentioning them as the source of my tapeworm. They're like, maybe you could back off on the name drop there. We don't want to start a rush. But no, the CDC is actually still very fond of me, even after I finished the Newsflash trilogy. They're very nice people, and they appreciate taking the Pikachu. But Parasite only just came out less than a week ago. We're still in that beautiful New York Times list reporting period, which is why I keep normally I'm not as enthusiastic about reminding people to buy books. I'm like, hey, you came to a book event, you brought me cookies, that was enough, we're done. Bookstores don't like that much, so always buy books. But more seriously, I'm very enthusiastic right now. Parasite's great. We want to make the New York Times list because then they'll pay me more. And food has a direct, money has a direct correlation to cat food in my house. Like it's a chain. It just goes from the bank to the cat. I might as well get the cat's credit cards. It would be much easier on my nerves. But not my budget.
Isn't it easier for them to chew the dollar bills, though?
Alice ordered a pizza once. I have an auto order set up with our local Mountain Mikes because we always get the same thing. And you can, in fact, if you go to their website, you can click the button to have 2 pizzas, 1 large Robber's Roost with red sauce and 1 large Mount Vegemore, no bell peppers, substitute extra tomatoes, billed to my Visa card and sent to the house.
And Alice did it.
Alice did it. I had left Firefox up and she closed a tab to get to the pizza tab and then proceeded to order a pizza. Fortunately, it was dinner time, so it's kind of like, well, thanks, Alice. But yeah, no, they don't like to eat money. They would really rather eat pizza. Or you. You would also do in a pinch.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me.
No. Yes.
Pivoting from food, one of the things that, this tiny little spoiler for the book, but one of the things was that people have to eat more calories to take care of their parasites. And so I just, when I hit that paragraph, I just set the book down to think about that for a little bit. And because it occurred to me that suddenly there are a whole bunch of other behaviors in our society that change because of the parasites.
Oh, yeah.
And so are there any of those that you didn't get a chance to put into the book that are in your brain?
So Parasite is set, I think, 7 years after the rollout. Parasite, for those of you who have missed it, is about parasites. And specifically, it's about genetically engineered tapeworms designed to both deal with the after effects of the hygiene hypothesis, which holds that allergies and autoimmune disorders are increasing in the population because our immune systems are bored. We have taken away the parasitic infections that they've historically had to deal with. When I say historically, I mean up until 50, 60, 80 years ago. I mean, it's a very recent phenomenon, this lack of massive internal parasitization in the human population. And it's not universal. There are places in the world, aren't you glad I'm in the children's section? There are places in the world where you actually have genetically identical populations living in urban and rural or even jungle environments, and they're finding that the incidence of allergies and autoimmune disorders are higher in the urban population on pretty much a matching arc to the reduction of parasitic infection. So the hygiene hypothesis says, hey, hookworms, no more arthritis. But if you're going with a tapeworm, which we do in Parasite, it's a genetically engineered tapeworm, you'll also have weight loss effects. And that's something that the people who designed the intestinal bodyguard, which is the implant in the Parasite series, worked to accentuate. They wanted to increase the weight loss effects. There's a really socially shaming book set somewhere between the beginning of the implant program and Parasite itself that's all about people who have never been able to lose weight for whatever medical reason, finally slimming down and having to confront the fact that they really were treated so much worse than they ever understood. I've been both very large and substantially thinner than I am now, and for me the worst thing about losing weight was actually learning how many people thought I was subhuman before. You know, I had people flat out say to my face, oh, well, you're almost pretty enough to Fennekin now. And I'm like, wow, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever. No, it's not. You're just an enormous Azumarill and I don't love you anymore. I said I was going to use Pokemon names for swearing, so people keep looking surprised when I do it.
Very well.
It's kind of a shock. So there's a really socially harsh book that would be set between the launch and actually Parasite, of just people going, great, so now that my PCOS doesn't render me incapable of losing weight because there's a monster living in my gut eating all of that extra fat, you're willing to acknowledge that I have a right to decent medical care? That's great. Yeah, how about you go Froki yourself? So that's fun. I thought through all of those things. Many of them do not fit, unfortunately, within the span of this book. I think through the social changes on everything, maybe a bit more than I should. I had one editor that did not work out for me, who we turned out to be unable to edit together because he would not give me thing A and let me stop for 30 seconds and think about how it cascaded through to the end of the book. You just go thing A, thing B, thing C, and expect me to still be with him. And I'm like, I can't be with you. I'm still trying to figure out how thing A changes the behavior of the bicycle messengers along the Pacific coast. Well, that's not important right now. We have to talk about thing B. No, that is important. Thing B may not exist. Once I accidentally reversed global warming in the feed series. I accidentally reversed global warming. That stopped me for quite some time. I had to talk to so many scientists. The editor for that series, who's unfortunately no longer with Orbit, called me at one point while I was writing Deadline and said, how's it going? And I said, well, I just got off the phone with my meteorologist. I think we're okay. Why were you on the phone with the meteorologist? Because the climatologist said I had to talk to the meteorologist. Why were you on the phone with the climatologist? To find out if I'd reversed global warming. Well, why does that matter? Because the entomologist said, and we just ran through, like, it really was a who's on first of science. And that was a little daunting for poor Dongwon, although he took it in stride. He took everything in stride. He was a good guy. Yes?
So, recently on NPR, I heard a story on how there are biotransfers being used.
Oh, the
to
poop
treat-
transfer! Oh my God, poop transplant is the best thing. It really is fantastic. They've got it down to where it's 20 pills rather than actually taking a syringe full of poop and putting it in a place that you don't want anyone putting a syringe ever for any reason. And what that does is it allows you to get a healthy biome inside yourself. Each one of us is basically a Pokemon game. We are occupied by hundreds, if not thousands, of different strains of bacteria, of small funguses, all of these things that live in our digestive system and make sure that everything that goes into us does what it's supposed to do and then comes out. An unhealthy biome is actually linked to some digestive disorders, again, to an inability to lose weight. That can be because your biome is messed up, because you have the wrong gut flora or you're missing some of the right gut flora. And so one of the things that is starting to happen increasingly, and this is going to get more important, like everyone should just wrap your head around this idea now, because we are entering the post-antibiotic era. The CDC has reset that clock to 0. We're done. There are no antibiotics that are meaningfully effective against everything anymore. The last of them fell 2 weeks ago. Congratulations. So things like biome transfer are about to become the only magic bullet we have. And for that, they literally flush you out. They do everything they can to extract your current biome from you, leave you completely sterile in a state where you probably would die inside of a week because you can't digest food, and then you get to swallow someone else's biome, which, yes, is extracted from fecal matter, and it unpacks itself. Hi, new people, what a great line to walk in on. Unpacks itself inside your body, and you will find that you are no longer troubled by persistent digestive problems. Maybe you slim down. Maybe that horrific flatulence that's been haunting you since senior prom finally goes away. You know, everything clears up. You just have to try and swallow those pills without dry heaving as you realize what you've put in your mouth.
I've heard it's also linked to what people have traditionally classified as mental disorders.
Yes, there are some mental disorders that we think are physical disorders. They are imbalances in the body because your brain is part of your body. We try and think it's not a lot of the time. It is. But there's still early days in that. Like there has nothing been conclusively said, oh, it turns out schizophrenia is an inheritable disorder, not because there's something odd going on in your brain, but because your binome is scrambled. That is one of the diseases that they're explicitly working on. They're also working on OCD. They think that it may be connected to a binome imbalance, and that could lead me to a really exciting decision in a couple years where they're like, here, take these pills and you won't have OCD anymore. And I'll be like, go away. You need to go. Get out. Leave. This is not a unicorn I want in my forest. So it's really fascinating. The body is so much more interconnected than we think it is. And it's going to be fun to see where this science goes. And right about the time that this science gets like really widely understood, I'm going to write a horrible book about it. Because that's how I function. Did you have your hand up?
Oh, that reminded me of something.
Uh-huh.
With how bionomes are like that, I'm wondering if it's related to what the Greeks with the humor imbalances.
It may well be, actually. The whole thing with your binome looks suspiciously like the Greek system of your humors are imbalanced. I'm going to bleed this off. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And since we think that the reason that a lot of us have such whacked out binomes now is because we are exposed to all these antibiotics, and we are exposed, unfortunately, to an urban environment that is not sandblasted as frequently as it maybe ought to be, which does result in things like fecal oral transmission from riding the subway.
Yay, cat section!
Everybody wear your hand sanitizer. We think that people are scrambling their binomes just accidentally through those treatments. And so the Greeks may have been onto something. It may at one point have been possible to actually adjust an imbalance just by going, oh, well, this is a thing that flourishes when you've got a really iron-rich bloodstream. I'm going to bleed you off and then not give you any cow. Look at that. Everything's better. A lot of the time we forget just how much people did understand about the body a long time ago because they didn't understand it with an MRI machine. Yes?
Have you thought about writing nonfiction at all? Because I bet you would sound a lot like Sarah Vowell, except with science.
I have, but then I realized that in nonfiction I'm not allowed to kill people unless it's a confession.
It could be a thought experiment.
It could be a thought experiment, and some of my short fiction has been the thought experiments I had been presenting to my friends for a year. I get tired of explaining them, so I just write a short story. If you've read Apocalypse Scenario,
Yes.
The Box, that is the thing. I would just be having dinner with my friends and conversation with lag, so I'd be like, so you get this letter. What do you do? The best answer was my friend Sean, who's like, I would blame myself for letting you get to this point. Thanks, Sean. You're a good guy. See, I'm not currently in the nonfiction place, except with social commentary and angry internet feminism, which I'm very good at, it turns out. But I may eventually start doing nonfiction once I've killed everyone enough times to get that out of my system. Everyone. Yes?
Related to nonfiction, have you thought about doing much alternate history, but still with the kind of like these kind of what if things?
I don't really do much historical. I like writing modern, and that's because out of all the things I enjoy researching, history is kind of the one that doesn't much appeal to me. Now, a lot of alt history is we changed one thing 500 years ago and the world grew up differently. And that can be appealing, but I haven't had one of those settings crop up yet. I kind of subscribe to the you get one impossible thing school. And my impossible thing a lot of the time is advances in medical science that kill everyone. I have periodically...
That's impossible?
That's very possible. What I'd kind of like to do, actually, is what we call the talking to your brown wife scenario. We only needed one person during the Raj, during the British invasion of India. One man to look at his wife, because a lot of British men moved to India and married women who lived there. Partially because they were colonialist jerks, but partially because they were absolutely gorgeous compared to the women back in England who had smallpox scars. And that's because India already understood the theory of variolation. They knew how to protect against smallpox. So you just needed one man to look at his wife and be like, dude, you are smoking hot. How did you do that? and have her go, oh, vaccination, circle, circle, dot, dot, now you got your smallpox shot. He could have come back to England, and you could have actually wound up with the British Indian Empire. You would have had India come into the empire as an equal rather than as a colonized state that inevitably led to the Boxer Revolution and lots of messed up stuff. And then between the two of them, you give Britain and India control together, we're just taking over Europe. Like, there is so much that's never going to happen because the British Indian Empire would never, ever fall. It'd be a beautifully messed up alternate history, and you could have a great time with it, but I have no story there. We only have setting. So I have lots of setting. Until story shows up, nothing happens.
Does that mean that's up for adoption?
No.
So when you say, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand or anything. When you say until story shows up, nothing happens, is that how that works for you? Story just shows up?
Oh yeah, the Newsflash universe. I was fussing with that world for literally 2 years. Feed is dedicated to Michael Ellis in part because he literally looked at me one night and was like, you either need to shut up about the zombies or you need to write the book. And I said, well, I don't have a plot, I just have a setting. And he said, well, then write a political campaign. What if it's a presidential election? Get out of my house.
Do it, go.
So, you know, it was 2 years of setting, no story. It could have been longer. Michael was very helpful in that regard. I am capable of staring blankly at y'all as long as you are capable of staring blankly at me. It's kind of a miracle, actually.
Daring contest, too.
If I put curry powder on my sushi, would it make it safer?
No. Also, no. Also, ew. Staring contest rules. I win, I bite your face. I lose, I bite your face. We tie, I buy you steak. Then I bite your face.
Somebody come up with a question before I bring up anti-vax to kill the staring contest.
Why don't we just call the staring contest Bite Your Face Time?
Oh, that's a great one. Yes.
I'm wondering, what was your motivation for choosing genetically modified parasites in particular rather than just implants?
Well, if you just swallow a human tapeworm, it turns out, spoiler alert, you die. So I needed to modify them to make them safe.
No, I meant like a medical implant.
Oh, like a medical implant. Well, partially because one of the nice things that parasites can do for their hosts, and parasites do nice things for their hosts. The parasite does not want you to die. The parasite wants you to remain as healthy as possible, as long as possible, because you are its food source. One of the nice things that parasites can do for their hosts is they can actually secrete helpful chemicals. So there's one species of roundworm that will just devastate the digestive system of whatever catches it. But in the meantime, it's got natural painkillers and anti-inflammatories being pumped into its bloodstream by the parasites. So they're trying to keep it healthy and moving around. It's a predator's parasite, so you can kind of understand why those would be the only things that mattered. If you genetically modified a tapeworm, you could get a tapeworm that generates insulin when the blood sugar gets low. You could actually get a tapeworm that was set up to be a time-release Wellbutrin implant. I have less issues with the idea of things living in me than some people, obviously. If you were like, here's a tapeworm, it will not kill you, and you can never forget to take your antidepressants again, okay. Can I take it with water? Like, how do I get that in me? How do we get that in me as fast as possible? Doing it biologically allowed for a wider adoption once they were sold to the population. And there actually is a bunch of stuff in Parasite about how they were marketed to people. They basically hired Sigourney Weaver to be their spokesperson for the first generation of rollout, because I know about bad parasites. Trying to convince people that they were safe. And part of what got them such a wide adoption was with a metal implant, you're still going to have to see the doctor. They're going to have to refill those drugs. They're going to have to check your implant. It could rust. It could set off a metal detector. You could have trouble with MRIs. There are a lot of reasonable consequences to having a physical metal implant. With a tapeworm, as long as they have made it biologically safe to have inside of you, it's going to keep making the drugs you need as long as it's alive. So,
Yay, tapeworms!
Yay, tapeworms! Hi. Yay, Justice. There's a Justice in this mall. That's great. I like Justice. They sell Monster High dolls.
Just give it their
I did. I already looked through it. There was no one on there that I needed. That's more common than not these days.
But you checked.
But I checked. I always check. I check everywhere I go. What else have we got? Yeah.
No, I've got another question. You've done a virus one for
Mhm.
zombies. You're doing a parasite one, and I haven't read it, so I'm not sure what it's about.
I'm gonna bet it's about parasites.
Well, I mean, but the secondary.
Yeah.
effects. So I'm wondering, are you gonna do anything about bacteria or drugs?
I'm currently doing fungus in a series of short stories. Next, I'm actually doing genetically modified food and colony collapse disorder. And then after that, we'll probably have bacteria. I admit I've been avoiding bacteria because I find it too depressing, which is a weird statement, but with viruses, if you choose not to vaccinate against something we have a vaccine for, you are being irresponsible. But that's not actually making the virus stronger. That's just potentially making the outbreak stronger. With bacteria, go to I'm sure there's a Bath and Body Works in this mall. If you go there, you will find that 90% of their soap doesn't have a non-antibacterial option anymore. People were so insistent that everything had to be antibacterial that that's all that sells, and that means it's all they make. I wound up not buying any of the pumpkin soaps this fall, which was very upsetting for me because every single kind of pumpkin soap was an antibacterial soap.
And it has that triclosan, which is like a pesticide.
Yeah, you're washing your hands in pesticide.
Yeah, and I read after that, after I've let my daughter use it since she was tiny, because it was fun to have the sense that it can mess with your hormones.
It can. It's great.
And the toothpaste, this is the kind of toothpaste that they actually put it in there to kill the colitis and stuff, so you're brushing your teeth with.
Ew.
Yeah. And the thing there is washing your hands with antibacterial soap does not, in point of fact, get them cleaner. Unless you're a doctor and have actually been sticking your hands in another human's body, you don't need antibacterial soap. You just need soap. If you are that worried that you have stuck your hands in something bacterially filthy, stick your hands in vodka, then wash them thoroughly with soap and water. Alcohol will still kill almost anything. All hail alcohol. I'm sure they hear that in the children's section a lot. But people feel safer when it says antibacterial. So antibacterial gets slapped on everything. And we strengthen the bacteria that are in our homes. We're actually increasing the danger in our homes. Meanwhile, 70% of the antibiotics sold in the United States go to the agriculture industry to be pumped straight into cows and chickens to make them grow a little bit faster. Well, on the one hand, I like eating cow and chicken, so clearly I have benefited from this. But on the other hand, this is causing us to get antibiotic resistant strains of things that should not be antibiotic resistant. We're talking end of days things that we are baking up because we want to have our chicken nuggets a little quicker. So the problem with bacteria really is, right now, I genuinely feel that if it is a medical crisis that decimates the human race, that kills 1 in 10 people and really puts us into a state of absolute social freefall, it's either going to be the end of antibiotics and the rampant abuse of antibiotics, or it's going to be the flu. And in both those cases, it's like, we had flu shots, you chose not to get them. We've had doctors for 50 years saying stop abusing antibiotics, and we have not chosen to stop abusing antibiotics. You know, if you go to Washington, there are doctors, the CDC, USAMRID, everyone is going, you have to restrict antibiotic use in agriculture. Agriculture is out of control, but the agriculture lobby is actually more powerful than the Centers for Disease Control. So the people who want bigger cows have more political power than the people who want fewer dead children. So that's why I haven't done bacteria. Welcome to the world. Honestly, it's not just us. I wish it were, because then I could move. What else have we got? Seriously, that's not where you want to leave this. Some of you'd probably like to sleep tonight.
Well, what about drugs?
I have a very conflicted position on drugs. I do. Because the people who are trying to protect us from drugs, using this in terms of both legal and illegal, are frequently not the people who need the drugs. we are for the first time as a country overwhelmingly in support of legalizing marijuana. Why? Well, because then all of those people with medical marijuana cards would have an easier time getting it, not because we are disproportionately jailing young people of color over having had a quarter ounce of marijuana. We've literally set up factories from school to prison, half of them on marijuana convictions. Pot is illegal because William Randolph Hearst didn't want to have anything endanger his lumber concerns. There's never been any reason other than political for the illegalization of that drug. But what it took to turn the tide was middle-class white people, deciding that they wanted to be able to light up too. Painkiller overdose and prescription drug overdose is on the rise. It is a huge killer of young people. It's a huge killer of young people in part because nobody is willing to talk to a pharmacist about how it works. I have 3 herniated discs in my back, L3 through L5. So I've been on both Vicodin and Flexerol for the pain when there is a problem, and those are legit prescriptions in my name. I'm afraid to talk to a pharmacist about how those drugs work. Because if you express too much interest in your drugs, you are displaying drug-seeking behavior, and they can decide not to fulfill your prescription. So instead of saying, yes, I genuinely need you to explain these to me, I genuinely need to know how not to hurt myself with them, I go, oh no, I know everything I need to know, thank you very much, and scamper away because I don't want to have the painkillers that I need to live a normal life taken away from me. Well, that means that I have run the risk of accidental overdose. I don't know why I'm not supposed to take these with grapefruit juice. I don't know why I'm not supposed to take more than 3 in a 24-hour period, because I haven't talked to a professional. Why haven't I talked to a professional? Because the current demonization of pharmacology, of this thing that we developed as a race to make ourselves happier, means that if I talk to them, I may wind up just living in a happy world of pain and agony. So drugs is, again, very depressing. It's very political. A lot of the things that people get put in prison for are small amounts of drugs, are things that would not hurt them, and it is so disproportionately affecting the non-Caucasian population of the country and anyone below a certain income level. My mother really wants to go to Ireland with me next year. I'm going to be guest of honor at Eurocon in Dublin. She really wants to go. We're McGuire's. That's where we're from. I've been to Ireland 4 times. She can't go because she has 3 drug felonies for possession of half an ounce of marijuana over the course of my teenage years. Now, I could buy those off because they're non-violent felonies. So I could literally pay, I think, $8,000 a felony to get them removed from her record, which again puts us into that Paris Hilton can get caught with a pound of pot and she has a clean record 20 minutes later. My mother is never going to be in that position. So I could pay them off. The problem is if you do that, the local police get notified, so-and-so is no longer a drug felon, it's been paid for. And now they get that little flag that says someone has money. And I've just signed my mom up for a drug raid, probably before we can get to the plane to Ireland. It's not, if it were evenly enforced across the entire population, if absolutely everyone had the same consequences and money and skin color did not make all the difference in the world, that would be one thing. But we don't live in that world. So drugs, again, is one of those things that's just too depressing. Now that we're all depressed and we've been brought a baby. Oh, zebra print. Hi, baby. Do you have a question? Yeah, you have a smile. We're all looking at you. That's exciting. Hi. How old are you? 9 months? Oh my gosh. You look like a people. That's wonderful. A friend of mine just had her baby very early, 27 weeks. The baby is doing wonderfully for having been born at 27 weeks. She's actually been alive for 3 weeks now and is just thriving in as much as a baby born that early can be said to thrive. But it means I'm really happy when I see babies that look like people because I'm like, oh, she's going to look like a people suit and not like something that was assembled by the Henson Corporation for evil purposes. I know her parents will see this video, but they've heard me say that about their baby already, so it's not news. What else have we got? Anything at all? This is the most depressing of my book tour stops, guys, and this is the last one.
Welcome to Portland.
Welcome to Portland! Everything is sad. Cats. Yes.
In both of your books, you have a very clever scientist reduced to pretty much
working out of their garage. So do you sit there and try and figure out what you absolutely have to accomplish this science? And
Give me $3,000 and a roll of duct tape and I can wipe out the human race for you.
How much do you charge for not wiping out?
Buy my book.
It has a receipt in it.
The human race may endure another day. I think a lot of the best science actually happens in small groups. You do still need oversight. If you don't have a peer review committee, you're probably going to kill us all. But at this point, because we have become so risk averse as a population, we really have hit the point where it's like, no, if that could explode, we need to all move away from it, rather than let's keep poking it to see if it does. That I think small groups of scientists come up with a lot of the best breakthroughs. Large groups of scientists refine them amazingly, and I'm sure that several large groups of scientists are going to be putting bags of flaming dog poop on my doorstep very soon for having made this statement. But I think small groups, you get more willingness to go, yeah, okay, that could blow up. Let's throw things at it and see what happens. Mythbusters. Also, there's just like a lack of adventure to, well, we have a problem. Let's go to the large, well-funded government agency where 20 crack researchers will be ready to solve our problem. It's going to take them at least an hour. Let's go to the cafeteria and have a nice salad. It'd be the children's book version of Parasite. 11 pages long, but not many people die. No fun for me.
I'd worry about what was on the salad.
Oh, you should worry about what's on the salad. Worrying about the salad is good. Do you have any other just like, you very rarely actually get the opportunity to grill me in front of a jury of my peers, guys. Yes?
Have you considered writing more, less medically focused science fiction?
Not yet. Because honestly, right now, the medically focused science fiction is filling a need. I mean, Crichton has passed away, unfortunately. Cook has moved very strongly out of the medical science fiction. I love the medical science fiction. I think you should write what you love, even if you are filling a niche. But at the moment, these sell quite well. And in regular science fiction, I would just be one among the marching horde. I really, really like it when books sell. I try not to be like crass, talk about money all the time, girl, but when books sell, I get to feed my cats. And I really enjoy them not burrowing into me and wearing me like a human suit, which they would be totally capable of doing if they ever...
You should write a book about that.
It's actually been done. Stephen King wrote it. It was a short story called The Cat from Hell. It was collected in the Night Shift anthology, which you can find over in the general literature and fiction section. I recommend it highly. Night Shift and Skeleton Crew are both fantastic, fantastic collections of a master of horror at his best. I don't know why Barnes & Noble doesn't have a horror section, but you can find Stephen King in literature, which is in the far left corner of the room. I believe he is 3 shelves out from the wall.
I see.
I had time to explore the bookstore. Yes!
How do you write so much? Do you sleep?
No, I don't sleep. I do have set word count goals every day when I'm not either at Disneyland or on book tour. Book tour has been very bad for my word count, but I built the schedule knowing that. I had time yesterday where I could have written. I even booted up my computer and opened the file and added like 500 words, and then I played Pokemon for 2 hours because no. On a normal day, and I remember I do have a day job still, so on a normal day job working day, I add 2,000 words to the current novel project and 1,000 words to the current short story project, and then I handle any editorial that's come in during that day. I build skip days in periodically because otherwise I would probably go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but they are not very common. I am very eagerly looking forward to the point where I can leave the day job. I'm so excited about the Affordable Care Act. I know some people are like, my insurance premiums are going up, and I feel bad for them because it sucks if your insurance premiums are going up, but my ability to actually afford insurance without a day job comes into existence on January 1st. And 40 hours a week plus 4 books a year does not make Jack a dull boy. It eventually makes Jack a dead boy, and that's not good. So I'm so excited about the ACA. Oh my God. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Now that we're in Nano time, folks talking about Nano, it's National Novel Writing Month. It's the month of November. And people go, how this is so hard. How do I do it? How do I make 60,000 words in 30 days? Well, you got 30 days. So 2,000 words a day, you're good. The problem is 2,000 words a day is not a standing start. Like, almost no one can go 0 to 2,000 words a day. So I think the folks that are successful at Nano are usually either people that have been writing but just needed something to focus them, or the fanfic writers. And fanfic does get you ready to do a long stretch. 60,000 words in 30 days. Totally doable. I've done 120,000 words in 30 days. I don't necessarily recommend it. But you've got to pace yourself. You've got to take deep breaths, and you've got to get your butt in the chair. That's really the how do you write so many words is get your butt in the chair.
Are you a late night writer?
I'm a morning person. Catherine Valenti is one of my best friends, and I love her to death, and we hated each other on site because she is a night owl. She's like, hello, I'm a mysterious creature of the night. Look at my black hair and smoky eyeliner and glass of cognac. And I'm like, good morning, sunshine. These are the best days of your life. Cartoon birdies have come to help me do the dishes. Everything is wonderful. So I came into Seattle on a late night flight. It landed way past my bedtime. I get taken to the house where Kat and I are both staying. We've never met before. We're sharing a house, the house of our friend Betsy. And I get brought into the house and they're like, Shannon, meet Kat. And Kat is like, well, hello, I am a creature of the night. And I'm like, So Kat is like, this person is unfriendly, antisocial, and inarticulate. Next morning, it's 7:30, so I've been up for an hour, sitting at the kitchen table, working on my novel, feeling very productive. Everything is wonderful. The Grudge comes shambling up from the basement. Like, hey, you want into your coffee. And I'm like, good morning! And Kat just goes. Like, if looks could kill, I would not be here now. Kat would have actually killed me that morning in Betsy's kitchen. So we hated each other on site because we are diametrically opposed. We match up for about 4 hours in the afternoon. Our entire friendship is based on the hours between 1 and 5 p.m. It's great fun. I will take 2 more questions and then we will start signing things. They should be excellent questions, or they should be from people who have not already asked me questions. Either of these would be acceptable. Yes!
So, I'm having a baby in April.
Congratulations!
I'm really glad you're here because we were going to go to the con in Seattle in April, but that's my due date.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So,
do you know if it's a boy or a girl, or are
yet.
you saying? Oh, that's wonderful. Yay,
But
baby.
I know I'm going to run into anti-vax moms.
Uh-huh.
Do you have a capsule speech that I can tell them to shut up?
Do you honestly think it's better to be dead than autistic? Like, and the whole anti-vax movement started out with a completely falsified paper, which has been discredited in several very reputable publications. The doctor who wrote it has actually had his license pulled, saying vaccines cause autism. Well, that's untrue. We know that's not true. But let's pause for a moment and go, what if? What if that were true, that vaccines caused autism in 1 out of every 100 children? Okay, is that child dead of smallpox? Yes, no. Is that child dead of measles? Yes, no. Is that child dead of insert 27 other diseases here? Yes, no. Can that child pass pertussis on to infants who are too young to be vaccinated? We had 200 babies die in California last year because of people not getting their Tdap booted up. Autism is not a fate worse than death. OCD is on the autism spectrum. I've done pretty well, and I was diagnosed at the age of 9. My ex-girlfriend Karen was high-functioning autistic her whole life, still is high-functioning autistic. She has not died. She has simply broken up with me and gone on to date other people who are less inclined, honestly, to cancel dates so they can stay home and work on their novel. And I asked her once when this was all blowing up and before we knew for sure that it had been discredited, honey, would you rather be dead than autistic? And she looked at me like I had just asked if she'd like to gargle an alligator snapping turtle. The ableistness, like the ableist jerkitude encapsulated in the anti-vax argument, because it really is people saying, well, I'm afraid a bad thing might happen to my child. And that bad thing would leave them not exactly perfect by my incredibly narrow and neurotypical definition, Therefore, I will not only put their life at risk, I will put the lives of every baby and immunocompromised individual in the area at risk, rather than take a risk that does not actually exist. It is the dick moviest movement I have ever encountered. Now, there are people who are genuinely worried about putting that much chemical into their child that quickly, which is why you have the delayed vaccination schedule. That is a thing to discuss with your pediatrician. It has its ups and downs. Honestly, as someone who does not enjoy shots, for all that I enjoy vaccines, I've probably been vaccinated against more things than anyone else here, because I will just go to the doctor and be like, hey, you got yellow fever? I'll take it. Oh, you got the dengue fever vaccine? Can I have that too? You know, I love that, but I hate needles. I am not a fan of shots. They make me very sad. Delayed vax, you put fewer chemicals into your child at once, but you mean you're going to form a much stronger association between going to the doctor and getting a needle jabbed into your arm. You know, if you're not doing the combo vaccines, now instead of 2 trips over 8 months, you're doing 8 trips over 8 months. Is that really better for either you or the baby? That is a conversation for you to have with your pediatrician. The anti-vax folks, though, I feel that right now we're in a position where we've had very little experience with an easily communicable disease that has a high childhood mortality. Our grandparents had that experience. My grandmother would have beaten my mother about the head with a frying pan and then taken me to the doctor herself if mom had said she didn't want to get me my measles vaccine, because my grandmother remembered classmates dying of measles. I don't have an actual experience with that. I've just read the books. I have seen the recitations, but it did happen. It does happen. It's happening in increasing numbers. And if someone chooses to risk the life of their child rather than take an easy and simple medical precaution that has no actually documented long-term mental effects, well, that's on them. But they probably shouldn't be allowed to babysit. I did have one person, and I was very sad about this, because I had one person come up to me at a book signing and go, you know, I like you and I follow you online, but do you think I'm a bad person because I don't vaccinate my 4 children that I then send to public school? And I was like, yes. I'm really sorry. I wish you hadn't asked me that, but yes. What grades are they in? Kindergarten through 3rd. That's great. Do you know how many things they're exposed to every day? Let's talk. Oh God, she left in tears. I felt terrible, but do your research. I hope she vaccinated her kids. Like, you're not a bad person anymore. I can take one more question, which is hopefully less depressing. Celia looks like she is about to come over and take my cookies back because she is sad and needs to put a thing in her mouth. Oh, don't make that face! That's not... Celia! Children's section! Come on, give me one more question. Or I'm going to start asking questions. Yes!
Do you have, among your characters, do you have favorites?
I do. I really, really do. Some of them are favorites because they're super fun to write. Like Foxy in the Newsflash books is the most fun to write in the universe. Because she's basically Harley Quinn from DC on downers. Like, I'm so calm. I think I'll just shoot everyone. And she is great. I love her. I also love writing Mahir from that series. Mahir makes me happy because Mahir's entire role is to be Horatio. There was an episode of Community where they sent Troy out to get the pizzas, and when he came back to the apartment, everything was on fire. And he just stood there going... And that's basically Mahir. He leaves the room for 5 minutes, and when he comes back, everything is broken or on fire. And he just goes... That's it. That's the book. Over in the Toby series, I actually just love writing Toby. Because Toby, have you seen Clerks?
Yeah.
Dante is Toby's Patronus.
Yes.
Like, she was not even supposed to be here today. Why is this going on? Why do I have to deal with it? I just want to go home, take off my pants, and watch late night TV. That's all I want. Oh, someone's been murdered and I have to, okay, great. That's just swell.
Of course.
Thanks for getting murdered. Idiots. And then over at Encrypted, I love Sarah. Because Sarah lets me make all the terrible math jokes I could ever want to make. And she also lets me really I'm an X-Men fan. I've always been an X-Men fan. Sarah learned her telepathic ethics from the X-Men. Mostly if Professor X says it's okay, don't do it. And it's wonderful to just have a telepath that's going, no, really. Do we have to have the don't lie to the telepath discussion again? It goes like this. Don't lie to the telepath. We're done. So that's wonderful. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Hungry velociraptor.
Hungry velociraptor who?
None of you people are allowed to answer the door. I'm Mira Grant. These are all my books. The bookstore would love you to buy them. I would love it too. Form the signing line off to my right if you would be so very kind. Thank you, children's section. We're sorry.
The correct answer
I learned a lot.
Hungry velociraptor is shotgun.
Shotgun is a good answer to hungry velociraptor.